On a Bridgewater, Massachusetts afternoon when the autumn breeze caressed her cheeks, Rachel Carter was organizing picture books in the children's section of the library. The sound of children's laughter naturally brought a smile to her face. The home she had built with her husband Michael over 10 years of marriage was a treasure beyond anything else to her. "Mommy, look, look!" A blonde girl burst into the library with a bright voice. Lily had just turned 8, her blue eyes sparkling as she held up a handmade craft project. "I made this at school. It's a family tree." Rachel knelt down to meet her daughter's eye level and accepted the craft. The tree made of colorful paper had 3 figures drawn on it: Daddy, Mommy, and little Lily. Each figure had the word love carefully written on it. "It's absolutely beautiful, Lily. Daddy will be so happy to see this." Rachel's heart filled with warm emotion. 6 years ago, when the couple, exhausted from fertility treatments, decided on adoption, many people expressed their concerns. However, from the moment they first held Lily, both understood that blood ties didn't matter. This little life was the piece that completed their family. In the evening, when Michael returned from work, Lily rushed to show him her craft first. Her husband, who worked as an engineer, instantly transformed his tired expression into a bright one. "This is a masterpiece. We'll have to display it in the place of honor on the refrigerator." Michael lifted Lily high, and her giggles echoed throughout the house. Rachel watched the two of them from the kitchen, once again savoring their happiness. "Grandpa and Grandma are coming today, right?" Lily asked with anticipation. "Yes, and Aunt Jessica is coming with them," Rachel answered with a smile, though she felt a small unease in the corner of her heart. Recently, her parents Robert and Margaret had begun visiting frequently. They hadn't shown much interest in their granddaughter before, but in the past few months, they had been stopping by once a week. Her sister Jessica almost always accompanied their parents. "It's wonderful when family gathers together," Rachel murmured to herself as if trying to convince herself. While preparing dinner, Rachel reflected on how her parents interacted with Lily. There was affection, she supposed, but sometimes she sensed a certain distance, a probing look in their eyes. Jessica especially had a stiff expression when talking to Lily, as if she were observing something. "Maybe I'm overthinking it," Rachel shook her head and focused on the homemade roast chicken. The doorbell rang, and her parents and Jessica arrived. Robert was a tall, dignified man whose meticulous nature as a former banker showed in his clothing. Margaret had her elegant gray hair neatly arranged and wore her usual perfect attire. Jessica had shoulder-length brown hair and a somewhat plump figure, but she shared the same blue eyes as her sister. "Hello, Lily," Margaret called out, but her voice lacked the warmth it used to have. Lily ran up to them warmly, but the 3 adults maintained a subtle distance as they exchanged greetings. Rachel suppressed her unease and welcomed the family brightly. The dinner conversation centered mainly on Michael's work and local topics. However, Rachel occasionally noticed her parents and Jessica staring at Lily. There was something in those gazes that hadn't been there before, a coldness mixed in, as if they were confirming whether Lily truly belonged to this family. After dinner, Lily went to her room to do homework. While the adults were having coffee in the living room, Robert spoke up. "You two seem happy, but have you ever thought about what a real family means?" Robert's words brought a heavy atmosphere to the quiet living room. Michael looked confused, and Rachel couldn't gauge her father's intentions. "What do you mean by that?" Rachel asked carefully. "Blood ties are special things, after all," Robert continued in a solemn tone. "Love is wonderful, but true bonds are formed by blood." Margaret nodded at her husband's words. "We love Lily too, but she's different from a real grandchild." Jessica leaned forward to join the conversation. "That's right, Rachel. When you have a real child, you'll surely understand the difference." Rachel's heart began racing. "Lily is our real daughter. Blood ties don't matter." "Now, don't get so excited," Margaret waved her hand dismissively. We're just talking about the nature of family. Michael placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. Lily is our precious daughter. Nothing more, nothing less. That night, after her parents and Jessica had gone home, Rachel couldn't sleep from anxiety. Michael tried to reassure her, but the unease deep in her heart wouldn't disappear. From the following week, her parents' visits became even more frequent. And there was a clear change in their attitude. Their words to Lily were polite but somehow cold, becoming more distant. Jessica's attitude was particularly noticeable. She would respond absent-mindedly when Lily spoke to her, sometimes even ignoring her. Aunt Jessica, look, when Lily brought a drawing she had made, Jessica only glanced at it and curtly said, very nice. Previously, she would have praised her more enthusiastically. Rachel tried to confront her sister, but Jessica made excuses saying she was busy and tired. However, when Rachel wasn't watching, Jessica's expression was clearly filled with hostility. One Saturday in October, Rachel had to leave early in the morning to prepare for a special event at the library. Michael had a golf appointment, so Lily would spend time with her grandparents and Jessica. It's fine, dear, Margaret said with a smile. We'll have a lovely time with Lily. However, that smile lacked the warmth it used to have. Despite feeling anxious, Rachel trusted her family and left. The library event was a great success, but Rachel's mind was filled with thoughts of home. When she returned in the early afternoon, Lily was quietly spending time in her room. How was it, honey? Did you have fun with Grandpa and the others? When Lily turned around, she seemed less energetic than usual. Yes, but my tummy hurts a little. Your tummy hurts. What did you eat? Grandma made cookies and juice for me, Lily answered in a small voice. But they tasted kind of strange. Rachel frowned. Her mother's cooking had always been delicious, so what could have tasted strange? Aunt Jessica, Lily continued, was talking to someone on the phone, saying I'm not real family. Rachel's blood froze. What did she say? I didn't understand everything, but she said that child isn't blood-related and it takes time to become real family. That night, Lily developed a fever. Rachel stayed by her side all night with worry, but the fever broke by morning. However, this was just the beginning. Every time her parents and Jessica visited, Lily would fall ill. She complained of headaches, nausea, and fatigue, sometimes having to miss school. When taken to the doctor, no particular abnormalities were found. It might be stress, the doctor said. Have there been any changes in her environment recently? Rachel mentioned her parents' frequent visits, but the doctor explained, some children feel pressure when family time increases. One day in November, when Rachel finished work early and came home, she heard tense voices from inside the house. Approaching quietly, she could hear Jessica talking to someone on the phone. Yes, it might take a little more time. But we'll definitely get results. That child isn't real family after all. Rachel held her breath and listened. Jessica's voice was mixed with coldness and conviction. A child without blood ties will eventually cause problems. Rachel can't understand, but we must protect the family's pure bloodline. Rachel gripped the doorknob with trembling hands. This wasn't a conversation she'd accidentally overheard, it was evidence that something planned was in progress. That evening, Lily complained of feeling unwell again. This time the symptoms were worse than before, and her face had turned pale. Mommy, I feel sick, Lily said in a weak voice. As Rachel held her daughter, she felt alarm bells ringing in her heart. These illnesses weren't coincidental. Something was happening. And it might be caused by her own family. The next morning, Rachel called the school to ask detailed questions about Lily's condition. The teacher answered with concern. Recently, Lily has been absent-minded during class a lot. She used to be so active, but I wonder if she has some worries. That afternoon, an emergency call came from the school. Lily had collapsed. "We're taking her to the hospital immediately," the nurse's voice was urgent. "Please come quickly." Rachel rushed out of the library and headed to the hospital while calling Michael with trembling hands. When Rachel parked her car in the parking lot of St. Mary's General Hospital, her hands were shaking. Even after turning off the engine, her heartbeat wouldn't stop. As the automatic doors of the emergency room opened, the smell of disinfectant and tense atmosphere enveloped her. "I'm Lily Carter's mother," she called to the reception nurse, who showed a relieved expression. "Oh, you've come. Your daughter is currently being examined. This gentleman has something to discuss with you." The nurse pointed to a uniformed man standing nearby. He was a police officer. An ominous feeling ran through Rachel's chest. "Mrs. Carter." "I'm Detective Johnson," the detective introduced himself with a kind but serious expression. "I'd like to speak with you about your daughter's case." "Is Lily all right? What happened?" Rachel's voice was strained. "Please calm down first. Your daughter has regained consciousness. Her life is not in danger." Detective Johnson's words brought Rachel some relief. "However, the test results detected substances in your daughter's blood that would not normally be found." "Substances?" "The doctor will explain the details, but we've conducted an investigation from another angle." "Mrs. Carter, could you please come to this small room?" Guided by Detective Johnson, Rachel entered a small consultation room in a corner of the hospital. The room contained a desk and chairs, and a small monitor mounted on the wall. "Ma'am, what I'm about to show you may be very shocking," the detective's voice was cautious. "When we investigated your daughter's health problems in detail at school, we discovered some interesting facts." "What do you mean?" Detective Johnson turned on the monitor. "When we analyzed the security camera footage from the school, we found that suspicious substances had been mixed into your daughter's backpack. And when we investigated those substances, we began to suspect the involvement of a certain family." The color drained from Rachel's face. She thought, surely not, but deep in her heart, an ominous feeling was becoming reality. "However, to obtain decisive evidence, we proceeded with the investigation carefully," the detective continued. "And today, after your daughter collapsed, we were able to record an important scene." The monitor screen went dark, then showed what appeared to be a hospital waiting room. Rachel gasped. On the screen, she could see her parents and Jessica sitting. The three were talking in low voices, and their expressions showed no worry at all. Rather, they seemed to be expecting something, looking satisfied. The audio was also recorded, Detective Johnson explained. "However, the content is very shocking. Are you prepared?" Rachel nodded. She gripped the armrests of her chair with trembling hands. On screen, Robert looked around before speaking. When the volume was increased, his voice could be heard clearly. "It'll be over soon. That child isn't real family." Margaret nodded. "A child without blood ties was a problem from the beginning. Rachel may feel bad, but this will open her eyes." Jessica's voice continued. "What I did was right. It was necessary to protect the family's pure bloodline. When that child is gone, Rachel will return to normal." Rachel's chest tightened. This was a nightmare. Her own family was saying such things about her beloved daughter. On screen, Robert looked at his watch. "How long will that drug's effects last?" "I put in more than last time, so the effects should be quite noticeable." Jessica's voice was filled with satisfaction. "If we gradually increase the amount each time, eventually." "Jessica," Margaret restrained her daughter. "It's better not to discuss details." "But Mom, this is going according to plan. If that child gets sick, Rachel might give up on adoption and decide to have a real child." Rachel couldn't even stand up. Her whole body was shaking, and her breathing became shallow. Her own sister had been poisoning her daughter. Moreover, her parents knew about it and were cooperating. Detective Johnson stopped the recording. Are you all right? Rachel couldn't answer. Tears streamed down her cheeks. The family she had loved was trying to harm the person most precious to her, simply because she wasn't blood-related. We've already obtained warrants and are questioning your family members in separate rooms, the detective explained quietly. Hypnotic drugs were found in your daughter's backpack. The same drugs were also found in Jessica Morgan's home. Is Lily really going to be okay? Rachel finally managed to speak. According to the doctor, the effects of the drugs are temporary. With proper treatment, she'll make a complete recovery, the detective's words brought Rachel some comfort. But why? Why would they do such a thing? Detective Johnson sighed deeply. Unfortunately, it seems to be caused by a twisted view of blood relationships. Your family couldn't accept your daughter as real family because she's adopted, and they resorted to extreme measures. Rachel held her head in her hands. How had it come to this? What had she done wrong? The detective spoke gently. This is not your fault. You're a wonderful mother. And how much your daughter loves you is clear from her words. Lily's words. When she regained consciousness, the first thing your daughter said was, "I want to see Mommy. And then, my real family is just Mommy and Daddy." At that moment, Rachel stood up. She had to see her daughter. She had to hold Lily and tell her how much she loved her. Can I see Lily? Of course. Your daughter is waiting for you too. As Detective Johnson guided her to the hospital room, Rachel made a vow in her heart. She would protect this child. Blood ties didn't matter. Love is what makes a family. And she would stand up to anyone who threatened that love, even if they were her own family. When she opened the hospital room door, Lily was lying in a small bed. Though her face was pale, she smiled weakly when she saw Rachel. Mommy. Rachel rushed to her daughter's bedside and took her small hand. Rachel waited for her daughter's recovery. When Michael rushed in, his face was pale. After hearing the situation from Detective Johnson, her husband looked at his wife with an expression of disbelief. Is it really true? Your family? Rachel could only nod. The two sat silently by Lily's bedside, watching her small chest rise and fall. The next morning, Detective Johnson visited the hospital room with detailed investigation results. Lily was still sleeping, but her complexion was gradually improving. "Ma'am, new facts were discovered in last night's investigation," the detective began reporting in a low voice. "When we searched Jessica Morgan's home, we found large quantities of sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication. These are drugs that cannot be obtained without a prescription." Michael leaned forward. How did she get them? She had previously received treatment for mild depression. She had been hoarding the medications prescribed at that time. She also had drugs obtained from a nurse friend. Rachel gasped. Her sister had been carrying out the crime so systematically. Furthermore, the detective continued, detailed notes about this plan were found on her cell phone. Starting 3 months ago, there was a plan called Project Pure that recorded a scheme to remove your daughter from the family. Rachel's chest tightened. Project Pure. It seems to mean protecting the family's pure bloodline. According to the notes, they planned to start with small amounts and gradually increase the drug dosage. Ultimately, the detective trailed off. Ultimately what? Michael pressed. They plan to hospitalize your daughter and make you realize that adoption can't support a family. And in the worst case. The detective's words were heavy, and silence filled the hospital room. Rachel covered her face with trembling hands. Her own family had seriously intended to harm her beloved daughter. What about my parents? Rachel asked fearfully. Robert Morgan and Margaret Morgan are also being questioned. At first they denied everything, but when confronted with evidence, they admitted knowing about Jessica's actions. It was also discovered that they actively cooperated. Detective Johnson opened his notebook. Your father, in particular, held the belief that children without blood ties will eventually bring misfortune to the family and considered this incident a necessary measure. Rachel stood up and walked to the window. Autumn's sunlight was streaming in outside, but her heart was frozen. The parents who had raised her had viewed her daughter this way. What about my mother? Margaret Morgan initially opposed it, but was persuaded by her husband and Jessica to cooperate. She apparently told herself it was for Rachel's happiness. Michael clenched his fists. For Rachel's happiness. By trying to poison our daughter. In their twisted logic, they believed that by eliminating the adopted child, you would be able to have a real child, the detective said with a bitter expression. Their abnormal obsession with blood relations had completely warped their judgment. At that moment, Lily woke up. Mommy. Rachel quickly returned to the bedside and kissed her daughter's forehead. Good morning, honey. How do you feel? A little better. Daddy's here too, Lily showed a weak but genuine smile. Michael took his daughter's hand. That's right, Lily. Everything's going to be fine now. Detective Johnson stood up. I need to discuss something. Could we talk in the hallway? Outside the hospital room, the detective continued with a serious expression. All three will be prosecuted. Jessica faces charges of assault and drug law violations, and your parents face conspiracy charges. However, since this is their first offense and they're showing deep remorse, they may avoid prison sentences. They won't go to prison. Rachel couldn't believe it. They'll likely receive probation. However, restraining orders will definitely be issued. They'll be prohibited from approaching your daughter or your family. Michael spoke up. Is that enough? There are legal limitations. However, Jessica will be ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment. Her obsession with blood relations has clearly reached a pathological level. That afternoon, Rachel went up to the hospital rooftop alone. Looking out at the cityscape, she reflected on the events of the past 3 months. Lily's health problems, her family's cold attitude, it had all been part of a planned crime. Her cell phone rang. It was an unknown number, but when she answered, she heard her mother's voice. Rachel. It's me, your mother. Margaret's voice was tearful. What do you want? Rachel's voice was cold. Please, listen to what I have to say. We really did this thinking of you. You're saying that trying to poison Lily was for my sake. That child isn't real family. We wanted you to have a real child. Lily is my real daughter. You people who can't understand that are the ones who aren't real family. On the other end of the phone, Margaret began crying. Rachel, please. Don't destroy our family. Who destroyed the family? Rachel hung up the phone. When she returned to the hospital room, Lily was sitting up drawing a picture. It showed 3 people holding hands, Daddy, Mommy, and little Lily. Mommy, look. This is our family. Rachel hugged her daughter. Yes, our real family. Michael placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. From now on, it's just the 3 of us. We won't let anyone interfere. That night, Rachel made up her mind. She would protect her daughter from people obsessed with blood ties and continue building a family based on true love. That was her mission as a mother. The next day, Detective Johnson gave his final report. All 3 were prosecuted, and Jessica was sentenced to 1 year of probation and psychiatric treatment. Her parents also received 6 months of probation, and 3-year restraining orders were issued. You can feel safe now, the detective said with relief. Rachel nodded, but she knew that the wounds in her heart wouldn't heal easily. However, as long as she had Lily as her light, she believed she could overcome any difficulty. 1 year later in autumn, warm laughter echoed through the Carter family living room. Lily had turned 9 and had grown into an even brighter and more energetic child than before. It took time to recover from that terrible incident, but the bond between the three family members had become deeper. "Mommy, I'm going to give a presentation about family at school," Lily said while doing homework at the dining table. "I want to tell everyone something." Rachel sat down next to her daughter. "What do you want to tell them?" "That real family isn't about being blood-related," Lily's eyes sparkled. "What matters is whether you love each other, right?" Michael came home from work and overheard this conversation. "That's exactly right, Lily. You're such a smart girl." Lily ran to her father. "Daddy, we're the happiest family in the world, aren't we?" "Absolutely," Michael lifted his daughter up. "We're a perfect family because you're here with us." Rachel watched the two of them, feeling warmth fill her chest. From that day, she had regained her confidence as a mother. The anxiety about not being blood-related and the loneliness of not being accepted by family had completely disappeared. Instead, she realized the strength of chosen love. On the weekend, the three had a picnic at the nearby park. While Lily played on the swings, Rachel and Michael sat on a bench talking. "Do you ever think about those people?" Michael asked quietly. Rachel shook her head. "At first I was filled with anger and sadness, but not anymore. We have what's truly precious." According to Detective Johnson's reports, Jessica was continuing psychiatric treatment and was gradually recovering. Her parents had successfully completed their probation period, but the restraining orders for all three remained in effect. Rachel had received several letters of apology, but she never once wrote back. "Mommy, look." Lily ran up with flowers in her hand. "I picked some flowers. Let's decorate the house with them." "How lovely. They'll brighten up our home," Rachel stroked her daughter's hair. That night, before Lily went to bed, the three of them read a book together as usual. Today they chose a picture book that depicted various forms of families around the world. "Look, this family has just grandparents and a child," Lily pointed to the page. "This family has 2 mommies. They're all different, but they're all families." "That's right," Rachel smiled. "Families come in many different forms." "Our family is special too," Lily said with satisfaction. "Daddy and Mommy chose me." Michael kissed Lily. "We're the ones who are happy to have been chosen by you." After Lily fell asleep, Rachel and Michael spent quiet time in the living room. The fireplace flame swayed gently, and the entire house was wrapped in peace. "Next year, Lily will be 10, Rachel murmured. "She's already half grown up." "We'll always be family," Michael took his wife's hand. "Regardless of blood ties, our love will never change." On the day of the school presentation the following week, Lily stood confidently in front of the class. Rachel watched her daughter from the observation seats. "My family is not connected by blood. But we're connected by love. Daddy and Mommy chose me. And I chose Daddy and Mommy too. Real families are made by caring about each other." Her classmates listened seriously. The teacher also had a moved expression. "You don't need blood to become family. All you need is love. That's why we're the strongest family in the world." When the presentation ended, applause rang out. Tears welled up in Rachel's eyes. Her 9-year-old daughter had expressed a truth that even adults couldn't understand in such a beautiful way. On the way home, Lily walked holding both parents' hands. "Mommy, Daddy, thank you." "For what?" Rachel asked. "For making me part of your family. And for teaching me real love." In that moment, Rachel was certain. They were a family bound by true bonds that transcended blood ties. Because they had overcome difficulties, that bond had become even stronger. Under the twilight sky, the three continued walking hand in hand. Tomorrow, next year, and far into the future, they would continue walking as a real family, the most beautiful family, united not by blood, but by love.